if you pass.
Hey there, what's up again? Dr. A here, CEO and founder of the Learning Liaisons, and you are in for a real treat. I know I say that on every video. We brought on our team our new certification specialist, Lisa Rama, and you are about to get to watch over an hour of our webinar we conducted in May, talking about from point A to point Z, the certification process. So if you have any questions about statement of eligibility, temporary certificates, the process, the courses, the exams you need to take, anything that comes with certification, guess what? We've got your back in this video. So go ahead, sit back, relax, grab your popcorn. If you have any question, comments, please go ahead and put them below this video in the comment section. We will jump on there and answer anything that you have. But please make sure you watch the whole video, because most likely we're going to cover every single question you have, but maybe you have a specific question. And you can put them in the comments or shoot us an email. Our contact information is below. Here at the Learning Liaisons, our main objective is that you feel safe, secure, and moving forward in your certification process, and you finish it with ease. So definitely sit back and relax, enjoy, use that comment box to share your comments and questions, and stay tuned in the end for a special announcement that's something cool that's happening every Monday night at 6 p.m. We'll see you on the back end. You have a great day and enjoy the video. Let's get rolling. All right. So many of you guys probably are familiar. So I see a lot of names in the attendee box that I'm familiar with, people who just signed up recently. I spoke to on the phone. Welcome, welcome. So many of you guys are probably a part of our courses online. If you're not, welcome to the Learning Liaisons family. You guys are in for a real treat. My name is Jason Ampel, aka Dr. A. Make it easy for you. I'm the owner of the Learning Liaisons. I started this company about 5.5 years ago, and we've helped almost now ticking up to 7,000 teachers to pass their various certification exams. So I myself have been a teacher, professor over at the University of Central Florida since 2009. I live education every day just like you guys are. So I saw a lot need of help with certification exams. And now I want to make sure we brought somebody on the team that is really an expert when it comes to the processes of becoming a teacher. So this way you guys have a lot of clarity and get all your questions answered. So you guys are going in the right direction. Because I personally have seen a lot of teachers over the years lose their jobs because they don't do something the right way and they miss deadlines and they're not sure what to do. So I want to make sure that you do the right thing, get it done in a timely manner, and have all the questions answered for you. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm going to turn it over to Lisa here. Here you go, Lisa. You got the magic pencil.
Magic pencil. Oh, wait.
There you go.
All right, all about me. So hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Raymer. I have been working in certification for 4 years, specifically in the state of Florida. I used to be a director of a state-approved EPI. Oops, I went back. See, I am not tech savvy. So I'm used to speaking in front of people, so this format's a little bit new to me. So please excuse me as you all go with me as I go through this first time at this. So I've worked one-on-one with thousands of teachers all over the state of Florida to talk about certification. And this is on group settings where I'm doing live sessions, information sessions on certification, and one-on-one with individuals. So I have gone through their statement of eligibility, talked about every situation under the sun about certification. So I know how much you guys are up against, and I know how many questions there are about that. So today's goal is definitely just to help you guys understand the process a little bit better and hopefully get you guys understanding, man, this is where I need to be, this is where I need to go, and I finally have a good sense of what I need to do. And it's not bad. It may seem overwhelming, but the whole goal is to make sure you realize this is completely achievable. Getting certified, there's a lot of different steps to it, but it's nothing you guys can't accomplish. You guys are in front of 30 little minds. Even if they're in high school, I still say little, but they're usually taller than me by that point, but that's okay. But you're in front of a lot of different minds. You have a lot of different things going on in teaching and doing your job. So state certification kind of becomes this other thing that you're like, well, what in the world do I have to do? So we're here to help you figure all that out today. So I've also worked directly with administrators and school districts on recruitment. So I understand that, you go to a different county, rules may be a little bit different than the other county you're in. So just keep that in mind as you go through the conversation, or as we go through this conversation about certification, that I'm talking about a state level. And so if your county has additional stipulations, they might have different requirements, or they might work a little bit more flexible than others. So just keep that in mind, and we can definitely talk about that a little bit more.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so before we begin, before we really dive into the process, got a couple of little housekeeping items for you, all right? So we're all on the same page. So one thing that I didn't put on the screen is the chat box. So here's a couple of things, and we have a lot of people watching on Facebook Live too. So if you see me with my phone while Lisa's talking, no, I'm not texting people or posting things. I'm going to answer questions on here as well. So here's how it's going to work. So if you're here in the Zoom room participating, we've got the chat box. If we're talking about, if Lisa's talking about something on the screen, for example, statement of eligibility, you have questions about that she doesn't cover, throw them in the chat box. If you have some amazing question that comes to mind, but it's not on topic, you don't want to forget it. If you're familiar with the Zoom room, there's a Q&A little chat bubbles on the bottom. I see a couple people put stuff in there already. Throw the question in there if it's off topic. At the end, I'll cycle through all of those, and Lisa will be able to answer those for you. So once again, on the content on the screen, throw it in the chat box. If it's off topic, but it's an important question for you to answer, throw it in the Q&A. Does that sound like a good plan? Give me a yes in the chat box. That sounds like a good plan. Awesome, awesome. All right, so next, this is being recorded. We're going to put it up on our YouTube channel probably over the weekend or early next week, because we launch new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday now. So got a lot of cool stuff on there too as well for your exam. So we're going to put that on there probably on Monday. So if you forget anything or you want to reference it, because she's going to give you some amazing information here, it's going to be on our YouTube channel. So you're going to want to subscribe to that so to get access to all to our previous webinars. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to subscribe here in a second. The third one, like I just mentioned, questions are off topic, put them in the Q&A box, or I'm going to give you my email at the end. If you have any questions, you can throw those in the email as well. Probably closer to the 75-minute mark. I don't want to scare you guys with the 90-minute mark. Next, and I bolded this, very important, the certification process can be tricky, just like Lisa mentioned before. If you don't understand it 100%, you can lose your job. So I'm not trying to scare you, that's just the reality. So the school districts have to abide by the state laws. So they want to keep you, but if you don't do things the right way and complete your necessary coursework or certification process, you're going to be out of a job. And we don't want that to happen. I've seen it happen with people. It's not pretty. So I want to make sure you keep your job. Okay, and that was from last night. So I don't know why that's on there.
I was
you didn't catch that. I copied over from last night. I forgot to take it off. All right. So don't worry about that. My bad. I'm always good for one mistake. Last but not least, make sure you have your phone ready. All right, because you're going to want to take some pictures of some of the stuff that Lisa's talking about, and you're going to want to have your phone ready here in a second, because I've got a little task for you. We're going to make sure you guys are on our YouTube channel. So make sure you have your phone ready and your camera open right now. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. So all of our previous webinars, and this one's going to be on our YouTube channel. So what I want you guys to do right now, right now, open your phone to your camera. You're not taking a picture. Just open up to the camera, and I want you to point it at the QR code on the screen. You don't have to do anything. Just point on the screen. It's going to open up a new window on your phone, and it's going to give you the opportunity to subscribe now. So if you want old school, there's the link. But all you have to do is open your camera, point the camera at the QR code on the screen. You can do that with any phone device. You can open up a window to subscribe. I'm going to give you guys 60 seconds to do that now. When you do that, go ahead and put in the chat box, YEP. Y-E-P, not yes, yep, Y-E-P in the chat box. I'll give you guys 60 seconds to do that now. This way you can get access to the recording of this session and all of our other free webinars we do. And I know a lot of you probably already subscribed, so if you already did that, that's great. Just put yep in there. So when you're done, just put yep in the chat box.
Oh, I'm seeing names I recognize. Yeah.
And this way you'll also get notified when we put this video up there too, so you don't have to look for it. Give you guys another 20 seconds. And if you're joining us from Facebook online, Facebook Live, obviously you can't do that because you're probably on your phone. There's the link there too. 10 seconds. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so are you guys ready to learn about getting certified the right way and doing it all the easy way? Who's hyped? Who knows what show that is?
I'm hyped.
Bonus points for the person who could put what show that is, and it's not The Office. No? There you go. Liz got it. Bonus points for Liz. Awesome. Liz, I want you to, yeah, awesome, very cool, very cool. I was gonna give you a little surprise there. Remind me at the end. I got a present for you, Liz. I'm gonna give you some free prep materials. How's that sound? You got the first answer, so stay at the end. Yeah, very cool. I'm gonna give it to you for free. So stay at the end, and so I don't forget. Just remind me, Liz. You remember Liz? I'll forget.
That's easy.
All right, so here's the agenda. It's all yours, Lisa.
All right, so today we're going to go over the goals of the presentation. What I really want to get, I want you to get out of the presentation. I'm going to go over the statement of status of eligibility, your temporary certificate, and your professional certificate. Now, I know you're looking at this going, well, I came here to figure out how to apply, understand all the rules, and we're going to go over all that. The reason I organized it like this is because I want to give you guys a constant flow on how the structure works for certification. So first you get your statement of status of eligibility. For many are going to get their temporary certificate, and then they're going to get their professional certificate. These are the key documents you're going to need to get throughout the certification process. And so you're going to see this come up time and time again, that I need a SOE or statement of status of eligibility. I need my temporary certificate. I need my professional. What's the difference? We're going to go all over that. So going over the goals, it's getting you to understand the overall certification process. So I know that a lot of people go, I went on the Department of Education's website, I heard something from a friend, so-and-so told me this, or I looked up something from some group online and this is what they told me. The goal is that we're going to connect all those dots. I feel like everyone gets a little bit of pieces of information, but they don't necessarily know how that specific piece of information applies to their situation, and if that even applies to their situation. So we're going to go over all this different kinds of information for you. So know your specific step. So what I want you to get out of the presentation is that you figure out this is where I'm at and this is where I need to go. I know you guys have probably found this process a little bit confusing, maybe a little bit overwhelming, or maybe you heard about it and then it's just kind of, you lose sight of it as you have to get focused on work. Totally understand all that. So our goal is to help support you through this process. Don't feel like you have to go at this alone. There's definitely a million different reasons why you're in teaching. We're glad you're in teaching and we want you to be in teaching. So we're just here to keep on going with this support system. So let's start with your official statement of status of eligibility. What is a SOE? I'm going to keep referring to it as an SOE from now on, so I don't have to say the super long name because it gets me tongue-tied all the time. It's a formal written response you get from the Department of Education. So we're going to talk about how you get one in a minute. But what this does is this lets you know everything you're going to have to do in order to get your temporary certificate and your professional certificate. You may hear people refer to your statement of eligibility as your golden ticket to certification, your roadmap to certification, your blueprint. Sometimes I like to say it's your itemized receipt letting you know every little thing that's going on to make it happen. So it defines your eligibility to teach. So we're going to talk about how you're going to know if you're eligible or not eligible to teach in an area in a little bit. Now, when you talk about eligibility, it's really focusing on your content matter. So, do I have the qualifications that allow me to know that I can teach the content that I'm applying for, that subject area that I've applied for? This document is valid for 3 years, and it's not the same 3 years that your temporary certificate is good for. So do keep that in mind, and we'll talk about the differences between your statement of eligibility and your temporary certificate in a little bit when I get to the temporary certificate slide. But your SOE is not a temporary certificate. So this is a very common misconception people have. So you apply with the Department of Education, you got all your documents in, you get the statement of status of eligibility, I'm certified. Not quite. You're very, very close, but there's a key point that makes it different from just having a statement of status of eligibility versus having a temporary certificate. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So when you get your statement of status of eligibility, just keep in mind, this is letting you know everything you need to do. And if you have any questions on it, you can always email Dr. A. He can forward those questions to me, and I'm more than happy to answer it and guide you. What I want you guys to know is, it's really important as you go through this process, there's a little bit of strategy involved. We want you to make sure that you're making educated decisions as you're navigating yourself through the certification process. Do we have anyone in here that's applied before? Okay. All right, good. So you guys have gone through the first part of the battle. So I know there might be some people in here that haven't applied yet. So you're going to find that this presentation is going to kind of go over whether you haven't started yet, whether you're kind of in the middle or you're towards the end. You're almost there to that finish line. So we'll definitely talk about all that. All right, we have people that applied, but they haven't received my transcripts. All right, so we'll definitely touch on all of that. So how do you even get a statement of eligibility? So you actually have to apply online with the Department of Education. So when you apply with the Department of Education, what they're going to do is they're going to ask you your whole life story. They have an application process. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes. Now, if you applied before November of 2017, what you're going to have to do is still create a new profile. So I do meet lots of teachers that they previously applied before, but they haven't applied in a while. Their statement of eligibility ran out, and now they need to reapply. So if you applied before November of 2017, you're going to need to create a new account in the Versa system. Now, when you're applying online, one thing to keep in mind is that you have to select the subject area in which you're trying to apply for. So you're going to have to decide what you want to teach in before you apply. A lot of people think that, hey, I'm going to submit all my documents. The Department of Education is going to come back and tell me, hey, I can teach in this area. That is not the case. So they want to know, hey, are you going to teach in elementary education? Are you going to teach in math 6 through 12? And that is specifically what we're going to be reviewing your transcripts for. Now, what's really nice with the process is that you can actually apply for any subject area. So even if you didn't graduate or get your bachelor's degree in a specific subject area, you can apply for other subject areas. You can apply for multiple subject areas. So if you want to apply for 1, 2, I've seen people even do 3, you can absolutely do that. That's up to you, but you want to make sure you're eligible or you're going for a job position in those areas, because this is going to add up. $75 adds up. In order to get eligible, the cost to be eligible might add up. So we got to think about all of those things. And then the last bullet point is you need to submit your official transcripts or your credential evaluation. So this is all your transcripts. I always encourage people to submit everything they have, because something you have in your transcripts could count towards you earning your temporary certificate to make you eligible, or could count later on in order to earn your professional certificate when you're working towards the teacher certification requirements for those education courses that we'll talk about. Now, the Department of Education needs to receive all 3 things in order to consider your application complete. So if you go online, you fill out your online application, you pay the $75, and you're like, okay, they can start reviewing my application. They cannot. They need your transcripts. And so if you're someone that's graduated outside of the United States, you're going to have to actually submit a credential evaluation. Do not submit your actual transcripts from your university, college of origin in whatever country that you're from. You're going to actually need to go to an approved agency from the Department of Education's website to get that credential evaluation, and you will submit that to the Department of Education. So when you submit those 3 things, then you have a completed application. So now the fun part, the waiting game. How long did you guys wait to get your statement of eligibility? They said they were, oh no, sorry, they said they were lost. 5 months, all right. Still waiting. Sounds
when did you start, Jennifer?
3 months. So the key thing is people are saying months. All right, let's get that keyword in there. Months to wait. And so when I talk about what you need to do to become eligible, this is why I focus on applying first, because the processing time does take about anywhere from 2 to 4 months on average. Now, if you're getting into the summer times, because that is when your certificates expire. Certificates always start on July 1st. They always end on June 30th. You're going to see peak processing time, which could be up to 6 months for some people. Why is it so long? It's usually because of the number of people applying and the amount of staff that they have. So they're doing their best with the staff that they have to process everything in a timely manner. But definitely when you are applying in the summertime, it's going to take a little bit longer versus when you're applying, let's say, October, November, January. Those are going to be ideal processing times. Now, if you go on their website, it's going to say a minimum of 4 weeks, but from my experience, minus 2018, I don't talk about 2018 because that took exceptionally long for a lot of people. It typically should take about 2 to 4 months. So,
Got some questions on there.
All right.
Their statement of eligibility expired. Do they have to submit the transcripts again when they reapply?
That's a great question. So no. So the Department of Education already has your transcripts on file. So you should be able to just reapply, and then they should be able to process your application. So for you, you would apply online again, pay the $75 fee, and then they already have your transcripts on file.
And then someone had a question before, got lost up in the chat, that
Okay.
it's expiring in August this year. They have to pass all their exams before that.
So this is kind of when the difference between a temporary certificate and a statement of eligibility comes into play. So if you have a statement of eligibility and you're working towards your requirements, but you actually haven't earned a certification, if your statement of eligibility expires and you haven't been hired, you haven't received any type of certification, you can go ahead and reapply to get a new statement of eligibility. Now, if you were certified, this creates a different conversation, which we can touch on in a little bit if people have questions on that. But if you only had a statement of eligibility and you're working towards those requirements, if it does expire, you should be able to reapply right away. Did you see more questions?
I think I got them all. On topic of this, let's see. Can you take your exams before receiving your statement of eligibility?
That's absolutely a great question. So you can. So the exams in the process, you don't have to have a statement of eligibility. You technically don't even have to have your degree. Part of some college requirements to enter their education program require you to take exams. So you don't actually have to have a statement of eligibility on hand, which brings me to kind of the next slide. It touches on eligibility. How do you know if you're eligible or not? So a good rule of thumb, this is a very general rule of thumb. If you graduated and your major is in the area, the subject area you're trying to apply for, you should be eligible. So if you're a biology major and then you're trying to apply for biology as a 6 through 12 level, then you should be immediately eligible. Now, if you're someone like me as a business major and you're trying to go into elementary education, you're going to have to take a subject area exam. So this is when you have to take the first exam in the process. So in order to be eligible, again, you can apply for any area, but you are going to have to take a subject area exam to be eligible if it's not related to your degree. Now, to be a little bit more technical with this, what the Department of Education is looking for is anywhere from 30 to 45 semester hours towards your subject area. So maybe you didn't graduate in that area. I have a lot of people that they started out as one major, took a majority of the courses, and then switched at the last minute. So they still could be eligible based off of their credits. So as long as they have enough semester hour credits, which you can find on the Department of Education's website, how many credits are needed for that subject area, you can absolutely still qualify that way. But if not, if you didn't take the college courses, then you need to pass the subject area exam. So when you get your statement of status of eligibility, if you get one that's not eligible, you'll see that it says like you need to take a bunch of college courses or take the subject area exam. I always tell people take the subject area exam. A big reason is because even if you take those college courses, regardless, you still have to take the subject area exam later in the process to earn your professional certificate. So it's really something to keep in mind. Sometimes when you're seeing, hey, I have to take all these classes and all this, it becomes very overwhelming. But just keep in mind, you can either take the college classes, but more times than not, the subject area exam is going to be the cost-efficient way to do it because it's $150 to take the exam versus having to sign up for college courses, which might cost how much money for that specific subject area. So I'm going to pause. I'm sure I'm getting lots of questions right now.
Tammy just graduated with elementary education. Does she need to wait until her degree is conferred to apply?
That is a great question as well. So I love all the questions because as I'm talking about certification, I'm definitely know certain things are going to slip my mind. But when you do graduate, in order to submit your transcripts, you do have to show a degree conferred date, and that needs to be listed on your transcripts. Sometimes colleges can take anywhere, they could do it right away. They might take a month or two. It really just depends on your college, but you want to make sure that your degree conferred date is on your transcripts when you submit your application package. Do you get a temporary certificate if working at a public school? So we'll talk about the temporary certificate momentarily, but you do get one if you work at a public school. There are ways where you can go directly to get a professional certificate, just depending on the way you go about, and we'll talk about routes later on in the presentation as well. Can you teach with your SOE? So absolutely. But it needs to be eligible. So that's the key word. You need to be eligible. And what I find too is depending on the school district that you go to, if they know you're going to be immediately eligible for a subject area, they might be willing to work with you and hire you while you're going through the certification process and getting your documents in order. Some school districts might be very strict on that you need to have the actual documentation. What I'm finding is a lot of school districts, though, if you have a not eligible statement of eligibility, but you passed your subject area exam, if you have both those documents, then you should be able to work with them to be able to get hired. But it's just kind of showing the documentation that you have, providing that information that you've met the requirements for that in order to be eligible. Let's see.
I'm thinking now those.
Did you say confer date on your transcript? Yes. So if you recently graduated and got your degree, you do have to have your conferred date on your transcript. So they need to know you officially graduated.
So before you move on, I know you said it before, but I got a couple of people on the Facebook Live asking.
Yeah, keep track.
Can you say again what the difference is for everyone between the statement of eligibility and you mentioned something before.
Oh, your temporary certificate?
Temporary certificate, the difference between the two.
So the big difference.
Blank, sorry.
No, it's okay, it's okay. So that's actually covered on the next slide, but it's fine, whatever. So the biggest difference is your statement of eligibility is stating that you haven't been hired yet. So if you only have a statement of eligibility, this is saying, hey, I've applied with the Department of Education. They let me know I'm eligible or not eligible to teach, and they let me know all my requirements. It writes it out for you. Your temporary certificate, you actually receive that once you're hired and working for a school district. So you'll notice on your statement of status of eligibility, it'll say you need verification of employment. They need to do background and fingerprinting. All of that stuff gets submitted once you're hired with the school district. Okay. So that's going to be the key difference. Now, and the dates are different too. So how should I just go? So your statement of eligibility, that will start, it's based off of your processing date. So you have a 3-year time frame, and that's all based off when you submit your documentation and when it's processed. Your temporary certificate is actually 3 years, and it always starts on July 1st, and it always ends on June 30th. So if you're someone that you get hired in the middle of the year, you get hired in September, October, you need to keep in mind that your certificate is actually backdated. Now, a way I like to phrase it, I don't know if it's the best analogy ever, but I like to think of like when you get your driver's license, you have to get a driver's permit first, then you have to drive a little bit, do a little bit more to meet the requirements, and then you get your full driver's license. This is kind of the same concept with getting your certification. So you get a temporary certificate. This allows you in the classroom to teach as a certified teacher of record, but you're still going to have to complete requirements before you're considered a fully professional certified teacher, and we'll talk about those requirements. Now, what you hear often is that your temporary certificate is a non-renewable certificate. So what happens is your temporary certificate, once it expires, you have to sit what's called the sit-out year. You have to sit out for a full year before you can actually go and apply for a new temporary certificate. Now, if you let it expire and you only have a couple requirements left to get your professional certificate, so say you have an exam or two to get your professional certificate, your temporary certificate will expire, and then you'll take your exams, and then you'll pay to go get your professional certificate is what will happen. So you can either do the sit-out year or complete your remaining requirements in order to get your professional certificate.
This is the part where I see where teachers lose their job because they don't pass their exams before
complete
their requirements.
So even though, and that's actually an excellent point, districts, even though you might still, you let your temporary certificate expire and then you're still working on your exams, your district can still let you go from your job because you have not fulfilled the state requirements in a timely manner. And so the temporary certificate, that 3-year period, lets them know we are giving you 3 years to work as a certified teacher while you work to complete the remaining requirements for your professional certificate. So if you're just on that statement of status of eligibility, and you haven't actually gotten hired, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in the process versus if you have your temporary certificate, which kind of starts that clock, that 3-year period of, hey, I really need to start getting things done and putting things in a time frame. And another thing I want to note is that when you apply, I mentioned that 2 to 4 month period, you saw people saying up to 6 months to apply for everything. That becomes a really good period to go ahead and start, because another question was, can I take the exams at any time? Yes, you can. So if you go through this going, hey, I'm going to probably need to take certain exams, then go ahead and study and prepare and take. You don't have to sit around and wait for your statement of eligibility. If you have a feeling that, hey, I'm a business major, I want to teach in elementary ed, then what I need to do is I need to take the subject area exam. Go apply, go prepare, take your exam. So then by the time they process your application, you've already taken and passed the subject area exam. You're now eligible and can work to be hired. Now, what are the questions?
Jasmine, I've done the sit-out year, but I tried to reapply and it won't let me.
So it won't let you just yet because it is May 20th? May 20th. So your temporary certificate it starts July 1st, it ends on June 30th, which means you cannot submit a new application until July 1st. So you do have to complete that's what's considered the full sit-out year. It's not when the school year ends, it's when the certificate year ends.
Oh, okay, awesome. Marilla said, can you get a temporary certificate even if you are not hired as a teacher? I'm working as a para in a high school.
No, so that's a little bit of the caveat with the temporary certificate. You do have to be hired as a teacher of record in order to receive it. So you can have your statement of eligibility, you can have an eligible statement of eligibility and not be hired. But again, that's one of the key differences between having a temporary and having a statement of eligibility is if you're hired or not. Can you apply for a temp cert twice? So absolutely. So if you complete your, if it's your implying that you're applying for 2 subject areas, you can apply for a temporary certificate in 2 subject areas, absolutely. One thing to note is when you're applying online, you're applying for an educator certificate. So it doesn't actually specify that you're applying for a temporary or you're applying for a professional, you're applying for an educator certificate. And when you get your response or statement of eligibility, it's going to apply to both. Are permanent substitutes considered teacher of record? What I have found is that permanent substitutes are not considered teachers of record. Now, it might be in classification depending on the school you're working with that you're still in charge, because I'm very familiar with what permanent substitutes are. So you are having that role, and it could be that the district's still waiting on documentation, or the Department of Education is still waiting on documentation to move you from a permanent substitute into that temporary certified teacher and making you that official teacher of record.
I have Julie on Facebook Live. I apologize right now if I mispronounced that right. What's the difference between completing the list of education classes from my eligibility letter and different rounds for getting the certification like EPI or PDCP? I've had my statement of eligibility for 2 years, but recently found out there are alternative routes to getting certified.
Yep, so we're going to talk about the professional certificate quite a bit in our next coming slides, so just hold off a little bit. Do we have any, oh wait, I see another question. So exactly, okay, so the question is, what is the sit-out year? Are you still getting paid if you're working as a teacher on a 3-year temporary certificate? So on your temporary certificate, you are getting paid as a teacher of record. Now, if you are experiencing your sit-out year, you are technically no longer certified. So this is when some people become permanent substitutes or regular substitutes. My SOE states I have 1 year to complete the GKT exam after receiving the temporary certificate. I thought it was 3 years. So you have an older statement of eligibility. So statement of eligibility is they updated the GKT requirements. I feel like this is so long ago because it's been such a long year. It was last March, so they updated, they lowered the price of the exams, and then they extended. So initially you had 1 year, which is crazy to think, but you had 1 year to complete your GKT, as if being a first-year teacher wasn't hard enough. But they moved that requirement, so now you do have a full 3 years in order to complete your general knowledge test. How much, I'm not sure if I'm clear on your question, Judith. How much is a temporary certificate renovation? Should I reapply? No, you don't need to reapply for, oh, how much is the application? Okay, yeah, the application is $75 per subject area. And then going back to Lynn's question, even though your statement of eligibility states you have to complete the 1 year for your GKT, you don't need to reapply to get a new one. School districts, the certification specialists in your school districts, the state, they're all well aware of these updated requirements, so there's no need to have to reapply, spend the money to do that, unless your statement of eligibility is about to expire. Let's see.
I think you got it.
Okay, so I have Lisa saying, I'm confused. The whole process is confusing, so don't feel alone in that. When I started, I was also a career changer. I came from oil and gas and I moved into education. So when I had to figure out certification, I was like, what in the world? I thought I was like, I could get this. This is no problem. Like, this is a lot. So your statement of eligibility and your temporary certificate do have two separate dates on there. So my best way of describing it is that your temporary certificate is a hiring document. This allows people to know that they can hire you as a teacher of record for 3 years while you're working to complete your requirements. Your statement of eligibility will sometimes expire before or after the fact, depending on when you get your temporary certificate issued. So in terms of having to complete your requirements, you will have to upgrade to a professional because you received a temporary certificate, but say you went to a direct to professional route, you would have up until January 30th, 2022 to complete the requirements, or else you'd have to reapply for a new statement of eligibility. So to keep in mind, your statement of eligibility is letting you know how much time you have to complete your requirements. Your temporary certificate allows the district to know they can hire you as a teacher of record for a 3-year period while you're working to complete your requirements. And I know those dates get a little bit confusing and it's a little thrown off, but I would focus on completing your requirements by the time your temporary certificate expires. If you apply for an SOE and you're ineligible, do you have to pay the $75 again and reapply if you pass the subject area exam? No. So what you would do is you would pass the subject area exam, and those records automatically get sent from the ftce to the Department of Education. They have their own little system that speaks to each other, and that just updates that you are now eligible. And it might be that documentation-wise, all you have is a not eligible SOE, and you're passing exam scores, but that should suffice in terms of documentation for most of the districts. Am I forgetting?
I don't think you're doing good. I think you're the Vanessa.
Vanessa, okay. I'm an ESP in my school. I already work with the district. They all my transcripts. Once I pass the subject area exam. Nope. Vanessa, for you, it tends to be a waiting game, so it's awesome that you're on top of everything and you've already passed your subject area exam. But as of this point, since you already applied, right now it's just the processing time. So they should already have that you passed your subject area exam scores, and you should be able to receive that eligible statement of eligibility.
Oh, Jennifer, that's something we can talk about offline. I don't think Lisa, did you tackle that question for Jennifer?
I scheduled to take 4 sub-tests June 26th. When I take similar practice exams online, there are questions that include acronyms aligned with federal guidelines. How can I better? Oh, that is not a question.
Yeah, we could talk about that at the end, Jennifer, if you have any questions, yeah. But yeah, once again, if you have questions that are off topic of the temporary certificate, throw them in the Q&A box. So we're not going to run off. We'll make sure we answer all your questions at the end. I just don't want to get too far off topic. I have a couple of questions from Facebook Live before we move on here.
Okay.
Sandy Baby asks, I'm assuming your name's Sandy. No, I didn't mean to blast you on there.
Oh.
So can you reapply after the 3 years if requirements are not met? Did you answer that before?
Yes. So if for any reason you don't meet the requirements within a 3-year period, you have 1 year, which is called your sit-out year, before you can reapply for a new temporary certificate, or you work to complete your requirements for your professional certificate.
Awesome. All right. Very cool. Okay. I think we got everybody for now.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, and if for any reason we missed your questions, don't worry, we're going to go over the whole presentation. We're going to go through all the questions in the chat, the questions in the Q&A box. We definitely want to make sure your questions are answered and they're answered in a timely manner, so you guys will get answers to your questions. And I'll try to be as specific as possible, and if I don't know the answer, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'll be like, you need to go talk to this person to go figure out and get more information regarding your certification. So your professional certificate, what is it? It is a 5-year renewable certificate, and this lets school districts know you have completed all your requirements in order to receive your state certification. It's renewed every 5 years, so every 5 years you have to complete a certain set of requirements. Majority of people usually complete them as in-service points through their school district. I believe it's 120 in-service points. Don't quote me on that. But the best people to ask about renewals is going to be your professional development team in your district or your certification specialist. They work hand in hand together, so ask one of those departments about getting more answers regarding your renewal, regarding how many in-service points you have, if you do have any questions regarding that. So what do I have to do to get one? So when you look at your statement of eligibility, what you're going to see is you have to take education courses, you're going to have to take state exams, and there's what I call a teaching component for it, and they ask that you teach for a year at elementary or secondary school. Now, what I like to keep in mind is you get the statement of status of eligibility, and it's anywhere from 2 to 3 pages listing out all this stuff. And this is kind of the itemized, individualized version of what you get on your statement of status of eligibility. But there's actually 11 routes, and we'll touch on the different routes and the different options in just a second. But I want to help you guys understand what the statement of status of eligibility is actually stating and what it's letting you know. So the first part is the education courses. Now, if you're someone that already graduated in elementary education, you're not going to see education courses on yours. If you're someone that started out in education, then you switched over, you might see that you have 3 of 6 bullet points that are normally on there for education course requirements. If you're someone that's never taken a single education class ever, if you're a full-on career changer and you're a business major going into elementary, that's the go-to example I go to, you'll probably see that you'll have a minimum of 15 semester hours in order to complete 6 educational areas. And so we'll talk about the ways you go about completing them. But the education courses, this is why it's important to submit all your transcripts, because all your transcripts can identify exactly, can knock off some of those requirements onto education course part. So a lot of times I see this, I think it's child and adolescent development that gets waived because someone took a child psychology course as an elective in college. And you might choose different routes based off of how many education courses are actually being required of you. Now, the next part is the state exam. So we talked about the subject area exam quite a bit in order to get your temporary certificate or to become eligible for your temporary certificate. Now, if you're that biology major and you applied to teach biology 6 through 12 and you're like, I'm immediately eligible, I have a temporary certificate, I don't need to take the subject area exam. That is not true. Even if you become immediately eligible, you do have to take the subject area exam in order to earn your professional certificate. So that's the most common misconception I get is, well, this is my major, it already said I was eligible. And again, it's eligible for a temporary certificate. In order to get your professional, you do have to take the subject area exam. The second part is your general knowledge test. So this is a 4-part exam. I'm sure a lot of people have talked about this exam. It's a 4-part exam covering English, reading comprehension, the writing, which is the essay portion, and then your mathematics portion. And the number 1 question I get is there any way I don't have to do this exam? If you have college teaching experience that equals a year, you don't have to take it, or if you take in the GRE, which is what people use to get into graduate school, if you've taken and passed sections of those exams, you can be waived from taking the general knowledge test. Oh, did you have a question?
No, I want to throw stuff. Virginia said it before, but I told her we were going to mention this. I haven't heard of this, so you probably have. The Greg Press Plus by Kaplan?
No idea.
You never heard. She said, someone told me you can choose between taking the GK or the Greg Press. I never heard of it. I'll have to look it up, but.
I personally haven't heard. I've
Okay.
heard the only two exemptions for the GKT are you have college teaching experience that equals up to a year, or you've taken and passed the GRE exam, which is that graduate exam or the exam for graduate school.
And just a side note, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with that. Some of you guys haven't, but the graduate exam is a little bit harder than the GKs for people getting into. It's an aptitude test of people getting into college. So they do have a certain score. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it's on the FLDOE website. You can just Google on the website. But in my experience, of people who go that route, they always come back for help to pass the GK because it's a lot harder for that exam and you need a certain score.
So I'm going to note, because I noticed this one question, because there is one bullet point I didn't list on here, and it is the completion of a Florida-approved professional education competency program. So what this program is, now, if you go by your statement of eligibility and you're doing everything what they call the a la carte, so you're signing up for college courses on your own, and you're taking that specific approach to it, then what you're going to do is you sign up with the school district to do the professional education competency program. So each district should have their own program in which you go to complete. Normally this is affiliated with completing a ftce portfolio from my understanding. So it's Florida Educator Accepted Practices. Now, depending on the route you choose, you may not see the professional education competency outlined specifically in that program, and that's because they have those competencies embedded into the projects, the coursework, and the assignments that you're providing depending on the program that you choose. And we'll talk about those different routes. But the reason I don't touch on that specifically because that can easily happen. The professional education competency happens when you're onboarded into a school district. For many school districts, not all, I don't speak for all, or it's that you are in a program and it's already embedded in it. So that's why I don't really mention it too much off by itself. So going back to state exams, the last exam is your professional education test. So you see that you have education courses that you have to take. So usually the professional education exam or the professional education test is the last exam individuals take in the process. They usually take their education courses first, and then they have teaching experience, they have their training, and all of these things combined with some test prep really help them, guide them through the exam. They usually find that's one of the easier exams for them to study for and prepare for and pass. I believe that's do you remember the pass rate for that?
It's 80%.
Yes.
I'm going to put that on the screen here too. But someone asked a question before. I was waiting for somebody. I wanted to wait till you got to this.
Yeah.
I forgot her name, but we lost it in the chat. They're talking about on the DOE website, it mentions that you can get exempt from that exam if you're labeled highly effective, but that's only if you're a part of an approved PDCP or EPI program, correct?
It's not. This is not inclusive of the EPI program. That's actually solely exclusive if you're in PDCP. So I don't talk about waiving that requirement because if you choose that specific route, then your mentors, your district will advise you if you can waive that requirement, and you work with them to get all the documentation in order.
Yeah. So for those people out there that asking that question, that doesn't mean, and I get this question all the time, that doesn't mean if you're labeled as highly effective, you get exempt. That's not the way it works. Your district has to have a PDCP program and you're a part of it. So some school districts do it for free, sometimes it's a cost, and there are a lot of hurdles you have to jump over for that. So if you have questions about that, that's something you want to talk to your district, because you might not even be able to even be eligible if your county doesn't have that program. And the PDC program, people ask, and that's an alternative certification program that school districts some offer. Those are the people that have a 4-year degree, not in education, and they go through the workshops and the coursework of their school district, and they get mentored throughout the process and ultimately finish and get their professional certificate.
Yep. And so the last component I had touched on, and I said according to your statement of eligibility, it actually outlines that you teach for a year at an elementary or secondary school. Now, depending on the program, and we'll talk about the routes and the programs in just a second, depending on the route of program, it might be that you're teaching for a year, it might be that you're conducting observations. Each program is kind of unique, but there is some type of teaching component to it where you're doing observations, you're on location, you're actually teaching as a teacher of record. So it just really varies from program to program.
And they changed the last part, right? Someone charming on Facebook Live is asking if school councils don't have to take the GK anymore. So
I'm not as familiar with school counseling, but I know that's correct.
That's what I thought. I don't want to jump the gun on that one.
No. I do know that's correct. I want to say they recently updated that in the past year for school counseling.
Okay.
Right. Yep. So I showed you, I showed you all of these requirements. So I've heard of all these different routes that I can take. Wait, this isn't updating. This updated. I broke it. Oh, there it goes.
Delay.
All right. So you need to, there's actually 11 routes. So a lot of people think that the statement of eligibility is the one-all, be-all thing that is going to be how you need to get certified. There's actually 11 different routes which you can go about to get certified. And we'll post, I'm actually going to send Dr. A the full chart from the Department of Education website that shows you all 11 routes so that we can see for yourself. I summarize it into 4 different categories. I mean, technically one's kind of 5. But you're completing college courses or a college program. So if you're someone that isn't an doesn't have a bachelor's degree, and you're working on your education degree, or you're taking a specific college education specific program. I know all the colleges and universities have very different setups for that kind of stuff. You're going to need to complete it. Or if you're someone that's already graduated and you only need to take anywhere from 1 to 6 classes, you might have to go back and sign up for those college courses. The other routes are the alternative certification route, which is like EPI, which is an Educator Preparation Institute. Or they mentioned the county programs. Those are the 2 main. These are great programs if you did not graduate education. So if you're someone who has majority of those education requirements, my rule of thumb is if you have 3 bullet points on your education course requirements or more, alternative certification might be or will probably be a good option. If you're someone that has 5 or 6 bullet points, alternative certification is definitely going to be the better option for you to complete the requirements. And so with the alternative certification route, you're going to complete the program as well as pass your state exams in order to get certified. And again, we'll send a link to everyone so you can see the charts and see the routes and you can understand that a little bit better. The other route is also reciprocity. So this could be that you have a national board teaching certificate. This could be that you got certified in another state and now are coming to Florida, which in this case, if you're from out of state coming into Florida, make sure to submit a front and back copy of your valid teaching certificate. That is the key word. So some states have, I think it's a lifetime teacher certification. I think that's what they call it. Yeah, they have lifetime teaching certification. A lot of them go by a 5-year rule. The key thing is it has to be a valid teaching certificate. So if you apply and your teaching certificate just expired, they're probably going to ask that you complete additional requirements. Usually it's involving state exams. So just make sure that if you are doing reciprocity, your certificate is still valid. Now, the other 2 that I like to mention are the college teaching experience. So if you're someone with college teaching experience that you have 1 year, up to 1 year, so you could have done part-time for a couple years, but it all equals 1 year of college teaching experience, you can utilize that route, and that waives the education course requirements and your GKT. So if you're a college professor, go that route. Without a doubt, go that route. And then the other one, which I don't find is as common, is you have a master's degree in STEM and you are teaching STEM at a high school level, and it's a very specific list of courses. If you think you might qualify for that, definitely contact your certification specialist, and don't ask me because I'm not 100% sure how all that works. But that's what I would say to that. So I know you're paying attention to questions and I'm not. So.
No, I just want to make sure we don't miss anybody.
Yeah.
And remember, if it's off topic and something we missed, put it in the Q&A, because I see we got a ton of questions in there. We'll rattle through them at the end, but we're grabbing some off the chat box here. On the previous screen, you talked about how you need to have 1 year of teaching in here. Yeah. So Maggie asking a good question. I know the answer, but I want you to say it.
Oh, yeah.
She said, is that count for student teaching?
Yep. So, and that's why I summarize it the way I do, because if you are enrolled in a current college program, then you are completing the teaching component under student teaching. Sometimes if you're going the alt cert route, you're actually teaching on a temporary certificate or you're conducting observations. Usually Usually it's you're teaching on a temporary certificate for majority of programs, but I know, again, you have to go explore which program does different things. Now, I will say this, when you're reviewing your routes and you're reviewing your options, there's really 3 things that I think come to mind when you're trying to figure out certification and how you're going to go about it. One is obviously cost. Cost is always going to be money talks, okay? So you're going to have to figure out if college courses or alt cert is going to be the best choice for you. I find alt cert, if you have majority of the courses to take, is going to be the more affordable choice, and it tends to be the better choice for people who aren't non-education majors. The other thing is timing. So I meet a lot of people that they are about to be on their 3rd year on their temporary certificate. They, life gets the best of them, and now they only have 1 year. So timing is going to be very critical when you're figuring out if you can get into a program in time and complete it before your temporary certificate runs out. So I know there are programs that can get you certified in as little as 6 months, and I know there are programs that can take up to 18 months depending on how that program's designed. So you have to factor that all into your timeline and your schedule of things. So does this program have open admission? Does it have closed admission? When is the admission enrollment period? How long does this program take? How much time do I have on my temporary certificate? So keep all of those things in mind. And then the last thing is going to be convenience. So all programs are not created equal, which is to your benefit because there are lots of options out there. So when you're thinking about convenience is, maybe there's a fully online program. I used to work for a fully online program. So fully online program, maybe you need to do face-to-face. Maybe you need to be face-to-face a couple times a week. Make sure you understand what you're exactly signing up for, and makes sure it makes sense with your lifestyle and the convenience factor if you're going to be capable of doing that. Are we seeing more questions?
Does student teaching count if you're doing an alternative certification program?
No. So what happens is if you started a program, say in college, and you did student teaching during that program, and now you're in an alt cert program, you're going to have to complete that specific alternative certification program's requirement. So again, that might be you are shadowing a teacher, doing teacher observations, you're teaching on your temporary certificate. They're treated independently of one another.
And the college teaching experience you talked about before, someone's asking if you submit that to the district or the state.
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that?
It got lost in the chat, but someone asked you talked about college teaching experience being amused. They want to know if that's something submitted to the state or their school district.
Oh, no, that's definitely to the Department of Education. So what they're looking for, if you have that college teaching experience, they're looking for on university letterhead, they want to see, I don't remember exactly the key information, but if you email Dr. A, I will get you the specific information where they need on university letterhead, they need to see your college course, the course credits, the name of the course, how long you taught there, and so forth. And then you send that documentation off to the Department of Education.
Keith said, my certification says completion of the following coursework, classroom management, safe learning environments. Can I waive that course because I have a full year teaching experience?
Oh, that's a great question. So that's kind of a little bit of loophole in the certification world. There are up to 2 or 3 classes. You can only waive one of them with teaching experience for 1 year, but you definitely want to verify which course you're waiving and verify that with your certification specialist to make sure that's the correct one. So you're taking the rest of it. But if you're taking an alt cert program, it doesn't matter. You still have to take all the courses when you're doing alt cert. So even if you can waive a class, you're not going to remove a class. Alt cert tends to be all inclusive. You have to take everything that you're signing up for.
And that's a good question too. I know they have a 10-year thing on the testing, but someone asked they taught in college for a year 10 years ago. Is there a timeline on that?
As far as I know, there's not. So I just say go ahead and submit. It doesn't hurt. If someone else knows more, definitely speak up. But as far as I know, I've not been informed of a time limit on the university teaching experience.
Okay. And someone, Jamo, was mentioning the Florida Teachers of Tomorrow.
That's where I'm from. So, Jamoa, I'm actually, I didn't know if I could mention it, but I used to work with Florida Teachers of Tomorrow. So that's actually the EPI, state-approved EPI I worked with for 4 years. So another thing just worth mentioning, because you mentioned my program, is depending on the route and the alt cert route, if you decide to go that way, is you have to consider if you move. So I know some programs you have to stay within that area or near that school or however that works in order to complete the program. So also keep in mind, if you think you're going to move somewhere soon, that whatever you sign up for can move with you. I would speak highly to Florida teachers. I'm a little bit biased like that, but it's definitely a good program. I know Chelsea still works there. She's a great program advisor, giving a lot of solid information. We work together closely. I mean, I'm a full-fledged advocate, so.
Yep, and someone mentioned earlier, Teacher Ready is also another similar program, yes, too. So that's another program as well. We're talking about EPIs.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay.
Oh, good. He just joined. I'll let Chelsea know to look out for you. All right. Do we have questions on there?
Julie asked, "What are the 3 courses which, from one, can be waived with 1 year of teaching experience?"
Oh, I wish I had the list in front of me. If you have all 6 bullet points on there, I want to say it's like the first 3. It's like classroom management. It might be the child and adolescent development, and then there's one other one. But again, don't quote me on that.
Find that and I'll send it out to everybody.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I can show you, but again, I would definitely just contact your certification specialist just to confirm, because I don't want to lead you the wrong way.
Right.
I know the classroom management for sure.
Okay.
The other 2, I forget if it's the first 2 or the first 3.
And Tanya on Facebook Live asked, "Does the EPI program include pre-K through 3?
Yeah, so the EPI should cover all subject areas that I know of. I've never seen one not able to offer for a particular subject area, which also, if you are deciding which subject areas to do, this is actually just a good side note that I forgot to talk about earlier. When you're doing the lower grade levels, elementary school, you can choose between pre-K through 3, or you can do elementary K through 6. So you do have those 2 choices, and then as you move on up in grade levels, the more certification or subject areas there are. So when you get to middle school, there's science, math, English, and social sciences, and then when you get to high school, there's a whole bunch more where they get a little bit more specific, so biology, chemistry, physics, and so forth.
Awesome. And Janae asked a question a while ago. My apologies, we didn't tackle it, Janae, if you're still on Facebook Live. She asked, "At what point can you start applying for a job?" She passed the subject area exam before applying for the statement of eligibility. Do I have to wait to apply for a job?
What I would do, that's a great question, just because I know the processing time is a little weird. What I would do is I would go ahead, and as soon as you can, go ahead and apply with the Department of Education. Print out that you've already applied, and so then when it becomes a communication thing, so start letting the school district or that you're trying to apply for, the school you're applying for, most likely the school would be the better bet, to let them know, hey, I've already applied, I already passed the subject area exam, can you work with me? It really depends on the county if they're going to be flexible to work with you without that documentation or not. I've seen counties be very strict that if you have the documentation, you can work. If you don't have that documentation, you can't. And I've seen some where they're more than happy to be flexible and work with you on that.
And Tammy, I'm not sure she says to renew a certificate, can you take the EST test to count as your hours needed?
Oh, no, I know what she's asking.
Okay.
It's not my expertise, but I know what she's asking. So when you're renewing your professional certificate, you can take the subject area exam. It counts for a certain number of your in-service points. I believe it's half. Don't quote me on that. But I do know that can count towards those renewal requirements, definitely. But get with your PD, professional development team. Let them double check how many points you have. I believe it counts for 60. Just don't quote me on that.
Yeah, and remember, I mentioned this at the beginning with the little housekeeping items. A lot of things that I witness, because this is what we do every day, 7 days a week, is that don't just go by what people say online. Like I know we have a Facebook group called When You Pass. If you guys aren't members, just search When You Pass on Facebook. And you'll notice a lot of teachers are trying to help each other out, telling them what they can and cannot do. Always ask your district and look on the DOE site first. And that's why we're here and we're starting to do these now. Because I've heard a lot of horror stories of it. My friend told me this X, Y, and Z, and then they wind up messing everything up. So not to sound mean, but don't go by what you see online from random people. Go to the source. Go to your district. Ask your university if you're a college student. go on the DOE website, and now you're going to have us as a resource to help you with this as well.
And what I like to remind people is I don't think anyone's giving wrong information. I think what tends to happen is you get the right information. It's just not information that may apply to you. And there's a number of reasons for that. It could be your work experience. It could be what you took in college. It could be a number of things. And so it's just trying to make sense of it all and what's going to make sense for your situation. So, you know, I'll be here as a resource to help kind of answer the certification questions, guide you where you need to go. And I'm more than happy to help. If you get certified in Florida, but teach in other states and your temp cert expires, you still have to do a sit-out year. So let's see, wait, I have to reread that. If you pass the GK before filling all.
I think you skipped to a different question.
Oh, I did. Okay, sorry. Okay. Oh man.
If you get certified in Florida but teach in other states and complete the reciprocity for that state, do you still have to keep renewing your certificate in Florida every 5 years?
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, I started reading one question and ended up on another. Great. Okay. So with that, you do have to keep the renewal. So whatever state you decide to get certified in, you need to be compliant with that specific state's certification requirements. So if you end up in a state, get certified for a lifetime, you will always be certified as a teacher in that state. But in terms of Florida, you do have to keep up with those renewal requirements if you want to keep a valid teaching certificate in Florida for your professional.
And I think you might have answered that along the way before. Lisa's question, if you pass the GK before fulfilling all temp cert requirements and your temp cert expires, do you have to sit out a year?
So it's a little bit tricky to answer just because it depends what your other requirements. If your GK, now, if you still have education courses and different things, I guess the best way to answer this is if your temporary certificate expires, you really have one or two options. You can complete requirements to earn your professional certificate and then apply to get your professional, or you can do the sit-out year and then reapply for a new temporary certificate. So either upgrade to a professional, complete the requirements, upgrade to a professional, or sit out and apply for a new temporary certificate.
All right, and then the last question I have on Facebook Live here from Julia is, I've got my elementary ed degree out of state. Are there different requirement or processes for me?
Degree. So what happens is you're still going to apply. You're still actually going to follow a lot of it. It's just that your statement of eligibility is going to look a little bit different. So if you got a degree out of state in education, regardless of what that education degree is, when you come into Florida, they're probably going to say you're eligible to teach in elementary education, but we're going to need you to take the state exams. So that's most likely what you're going to see. There might be another requirement where you get hired, so you officially get the certificate, but that would be that.
Where should I apply to renew my temporary certificate? Do I have to renew my SOE first?
Oh, no, it's okay. So what happens is once you let something expire, you're just applying. There's not really a renewal process in order for your statement of eligibility or your temporary certificate. There's a renewal process for your professional. But if you let your statement of eligibility expire or you let your temporary certificate expire, then you need to apply for a new temporary certificate or a new statement of eligibility. The reason being is, during that 3-year period, if they decided to make any kind of updates to certification requirements, that 3-year period, you're guaranteed for that 3-year period that these are the only requirements going to be requested of you. Now, if they change that, I mean, the state can do what they need to do, absolutely, but general rule of thumb, that's how that would work.
The date of expiration of the statement of eligibility means only to complete the necessary exams, or it also mean that we need to get a job before that expiration date on the SOE?
So the statement of eligibility, it's letting you know that you have 3 years to get hired under this specific statement of eligibility. And within this 3-year period, I guess the best way I think to describe your statement of eligibility, think of it as like your contract with the state saying you complete these requirements, we can provide you this certification. And it kind of guarantees that if anything changes within that time frame, that you are only held to what your statement of eligibility says. And again, I mentioned earlier, if the state decides, well, no, everyone has to apply to that, then they can do that. But usually your statement of eligibility is kind of guaranteed this is what you have to complete. Upgrade your professional, passing the professional exam. I'm not sure I understand Queen's question, but I know if you have a temporary certificate, you do upgrade to your professional, and it is possible for you to go directly to a professional certificate depending on the route and program that you choose. So if you choose an alt-cert program or you're in a college program, you're usually going directly to a professional, depending on the alt-cert program too.
Where do we get the regulations for alt-cert route?
I'm not sure about regulations, but you can find a list of alternative certification routes listed on the Department of Education's website.
Yeah, but that's the form you said you'll send them. I'll send to everybody.
So okay. Yeah, they'll have all the routes, and I can add links to all the alternate places too.
Okay, awesome. All right. I know you guys are doing awesome. Great questions, and we got a ton of questions in the Q&A.
I'm trying to keep that.
No, you're good. We're doing awesome. You're doing awesome, Lisa. So don't worry. We're going to answer all your questions in the Q&A because they keep increasing every second. So we're going to tackle them for you. Just stay tuned.
All right. So
a couple quick recap, because this is the teacher in me. I want to make sure everyone's participating. You guys on Facebook Live as well. I'm going to give you guys maybe a minute or two. I want everyone to put one thing in the chat box that you learned so far from Lisa. It's a little comprehension check for you guys. If you're watching on Facebook Live, go ahead and put in that comment too. One thing that I know you learned a lot of stuff because she is the genius here when it comes to certification. So one thing, I'm going to give you guys a minute. Go ahead. One thing. Facebook Live group, you too as well. You're not exempt. 11 different pathways. You can waive, of course, by teaching 1 year.
And we'll send you guys all the different routes, so that way you guys have that full visual.
And remember, this recording is going to be on our YouTube channel early next week. So if you guys, I know we had a lot of people come in late, especially on Facebook Live. So yeah, Tanya, Florida teachers rock. You're right.
Yes.
Let's go. Give you guys another 30 seconds. Let's see those one thing you learned.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Oh,
Priscilla on Facebook Live. Priscilla says the 3-year temp is expired. You can reapply a year after. SOE will let you know what you need to do. Debbie says on Facebook, great job. Awesome. I just want to make sure you guys are paying attention instead of cooking dinner and listening.
Oh, I don't blame you. I'm hungry
That's just too early for dinner, right?
No, never. It's never too early for food.
All right. Awesome. So, couple quick things, and then we're going to knock out all of your Q&A questions for you. So, I want to talk numbers because the bulk of what Lisa was talking about, and this is not the only thing a part of your requirements, is passing those exams. So, I put the 3 biggest exams on there. So everybody's got to do the GK, and everybody's got to do the professional ed test. And I threw that K through 6 in there because that's the most popular, because obviously K through 6 has the most amount of teachers in the state of Florida. These are numbers according to the DOE, right? So this is a little shock value, but a little education, because there's a lot of people here that have not tried to take their exams. They haven't started prepping. Some of you guys maybe knocked one of them out and you're in the process of the other 2. So it's real important to have an understanding of the testing process, the requirements, what you need to do, like Lisa talked about, and then also preparing and making sure you're setting yourself up for success. So this is from the DOE. Obviously, I just rounded the numbers off the DOE website, but 15,000 teachers on average take that GK. So only 39% pass all 4 subtests on the first attempt. So it's all about preparing the right way. So when you're in your school district doing the trainings, I work with a lot of school districts and universities that come out face-to-face to do stuff. A lot of you guys probably are doing our courses here online. We're attending here in the webinar. But it's real important to understand that you've got to pass these exams, but you also have to understand about the exams, knowing the skills in the blueprint. Ooh, I didn't shut that off. The skills in the blueprint, all of the competencies, everything that you need to know in order to walk in. Because I've learned a lot in our experience of doing this. A lot of people walk into these exams not knowing really a lot about it. Their school district says you got to pass the GK. They go sign up and they just walk into a buzzsaw. So it's real important to make sure that we prepare the right way. So since prep for these exams are the utmost importance, we want to make sure that we're able to help you out. And if you guys, I'm sure as anyone has probably been to some of our other webinars, when we do these webinars, we try our best here at the Learning Liaisons to set people up for success. So, hey there, Dr. A here again. So what'd you think of the video? We definitely want you to like, subscribe, comment below if you have any questions. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you obviously watched the whole video. So kudos to you That was a long one, but full packed, jam-packed of important information you need to know for the teacher certification process. So without further ado, I promise you to tell you something really cool that's coming up starting June 1st, and obviously you're probably watching this video after June 1st, but starting June 1st, 2020, every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we started a live stream show starting moi. It's called The Deets with Dr. A, and what it is I invite special guests each week. These are principals, certifications experts. We're going to have some superintendents on there, bullying experts, other consultants, you name it. We've got a bunch of teachers of the year on there, team members here at the Learning Liaisons. We have got everything education. It's not just a certification live stream show. We will sprinkle that in from week to week, but it's all about education. Call it PD if you want. We're really revolutionizing the idea of PD with this thing, but it's going to be for about an hour every Monday at 6 p.m. So stay tuned. I got a little intro video here coming up right when I end this video. So if you have any questions or comments or concerns, you could always call or text us at 407-797-1499. Remember, I'm going to tell you the same thing we tell thousands of students every year who work in our courses and pass their exams. Remember, it's when you pass, not if you pass. Dr. A here. You guys have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment for us, and we'll catch you on the next video.